I stood there watching as my camper pulled out of the driveway, hitched to someone else's pickup. I'd paid over 10 grand for that thing, lived in it for 2 years, and now I just sold it for $2,500. What went wrong? What happened to the dream, the freedom, the fun, the adventure I thought that I was buying? It all started with one mistake, a $10,000 mistake. So let's back this up a bit. When I bought that camper, I wasn't just buying some get back to nature getaway thing, something that I was going to do just on the weekends. I was buying a vision, minimalism, freedom, adventure. Honestly, it sounded like a reset for this stage of my life. All of my kids had graduated. My youngest was still at home. One of my sons was in the military. One was married. Another was living on his own a few hours away. And my daughter was just graduating from college. For the first time in decades, I wasn't needed in the same way that I had been. And there was this voice inside me saying, now it's your turn. I thought downsizing into a camper would be the perfect reset, lower expenses, more flexibility, maybe even a chance to travel a bit, get out into nature and finally breathe. Looking back, I guess this is what they used to call a midlife crisis. I'm sure you can think of someone who's done this exact same thing. Maybe from the outside looking in, you could spot the trouble a mile away when someone you knew rushed into things like buying a house too soon, quitting a job too fast, starting a business without a plan, making a move to start over, and ending up stuck. If any of my friends or family saw the signs, they didn't say a word. And me, I was blissfully unaware of everything that was about to happen. The disaster I was about to face, the financial catastrophe that was about to crush my whole fantasy. I saw people online who looked so happy doing it. Van life, tiny homes, minimalist living. It all seemed so intentional, like they had life figured out. And honestly, I wanted that. Well, I guess it would be more accurate to say that I wanted peace. I wanted simplicity. I wanted to feel freedom for once. But looking back, I can see it now for what it really was. I wasn't interested in a new lifestyle. What I really wanted was something less concrete. It was more of a feeling. And I thought that if I changed my external circumstances, it would fix what was feeling off internally. I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I just knew that when I looked at all those videos and photos online, something in me just lit up. But I really should have explored what created that feeling before I dropped 10 grand on that camper. At first it was exciting. I started packing up the house, downsizing, moving things to storage. It just felt right for a little while. But I didn't know anything about campers. Not what to look for, not what to check before buying, not what it would really take to live this RV lifestyle. All my thoughts were focused on the aesthetic, what I'd seen online, the dream everyone else was selling. A cozy, minimal, beautiful space. And I was all about that vision. I started planning the perfect makeover. But the moment I started in with the first little bit of renovation, the problems just started dropping one right after another. Rotten floors in the back bunk area, water damage in the slide out and on the floor, a burned main power plug. One issue turned into another, and it was clear this wasn't going to be a cute weekend project. My brother came over and helped patch things up the best that he could, but my DIY skills weren't great, and the repairs just kept piling up. And here's where things really started spiraling. I'd already given notice to my landlord, so we were on a deadline. I had a decent budget to make the camper look pretty, homey, comfy, Pinterest-like. There was money set aside for moving it down south and covering about 6 months of expenses. But that money kept disappearing into repairs, tools, rushed supply runs. And I'd only given us 2 months to make all the repairs, renovate the camper, move everything out of the house and into storage, and find a long-term campsite down south. I had no idea I was trying to move during peak winter camping season. I mean, seriously, who would have ever really thought that was a thing? The truth is, most of those long-term campsites in the southern states are booked months in advance, sometimes even up to a year in advance. And here's naive little me thinking, I can easily find a campsite down south to move our little camper to and get it set up for the winter. And then I got hit with the worst news yet. The camper I'd bought, it was too old for most long-term campsites. 3 years too old. One more thing I hadn't researched. I'd been thinking of the Carolinas, Georgia maybe, Florida, Texas if I had to. It wasn't my first choice. You're just not going to believe where we ended up. So while I was focusing on paint colors and Pinterest ideas, the foundation of the plan was falling apart. I thought I was still making the camper feel more like home. The truth is, I was just emotionally spending, trying to control the chaos by controlling the decor. The budget that was supposed to carry us through the transition kept getting smaller and smaller. In hindsight, that money could have gone into an emergency fund or into maintenance or toward an actual plan. But I didn't see that at the time. And the worst part, all those upgrades, those cute little renovations, they depreciated the value even more. It made the camper harder to sell after the whole dream fell apart. And here's the thing. Once we finally moved into the camper, once the stress of those 2 chaotic months was behind us, when things were supposed to get easier, they didn't. It didn't cost less. It didn't feel right. Living in that camper was just as expensive as living in my cozy 5-bedroom house. Only now I was cramped in under 500 square feet with not just 1, but 2 of my adult sons, trapped by my own lack of planning, away from my friends, away from family, completely out of money, and with no backup plan. And let me tell you something. The only thing worse than living paycheck to paycheck under a warm, familiar roof is living paycheck to paycheck in a box in the middle of winter with barely any insulation, parked in a campground in northern Kentucky, like right on the border of Ohio. Yep, that's right. My big dream of escaping to the south, it landed me in a podunk little town in Kentucky, just across the Ohio border, getting almost as much snow as we would have gotten back in Wisconsin. All because I had been chasing a dream, a fantasy, rather than creating a plan for financial freedom. That was the moment I had to face the truth. This dream didn't just cost me money, it cost me my peace of mind. Looking back, the $10,000 loss wasn't the biggest mistake. The real mistake happened before I ever bought the camper. It happened the moment I started chasing someone else's version of financial freedom. I was trying to design a new life, but I didn't start with alignment. I started with emotion. I felt lost, untethered, ready for a change. And instead of looking at my life and creating a vision, a plan, instead of asking, what do I actually want in this season of my life? I jumped into a fantasy that wasn't built for me. I thought if I made it cute, I'd feel better. If I downsized, life would get easier. If I hit the road, moved away from it all, maybe I'd feel free. If I could cut expenses, I could have the money to spend on more stuff that would make me happy. But none of those things created the stability, the clarity, or the peace I was craving, because they were all external fixes for an internal misalignment. I didn't need a camper. I didn't need to relocate. I didn't need to spend more money. I needed a plan. I needed time. I needed alignment. And what I've learned since then is this. Financial freedom doesn't come from escape. It comes from building a life that reflects your values, one aligned step and decision at a time. Now, when I make decisions, especially big ones, I don't look at the dreams that someone else is building. Instead, I ask myself, does this align with the vision I have for my life? Does this make sense for me financially? Is this what I truly want, or am I trying to spend money to fix something deeper? Financial freedom doesn't start with putting money down on something that you think will make you happy. It starts when you define the life you've always wanted and know exactly what it's going to take to help you reach that vision. So yeah, losing 10 grand hurt, but what hurt more was realizing I'd been chasing a version of financial freedom that wasn't even mine. Financial freedom doesn't start with buying something, spending on something to create what you think will make you happy. It starts with a vision, a plan to make it real. And if you're not sure how to do that, watch this video next, because without this one thing, none of the financial advice out there really works.